Surrender is when you butt up against something that says, yeah, you are empowered, but you're not in charge.
Right.
You know, it's the Bill Murray quote that's in the famous movie Groundhog Day, where he says, I'm God. He says, I'm not the God, I'm a God.
Right.
And in the surrender stage, you realize I don't have all the power. Something else does, which I've these days call the great something. And what I want to do is align with the great something.
Welcome to Letting Go and the Greatest Secret, where we explore the end of your suffering and the beginning of lasting happiness. I'm Hale Dwoskin, and today we'll be talking with Dr. Joe Vitale, who is featured along with me in Rhonda Byrne's movie and book, The Secret. Dr. Joe Vitale is the author of too many books to list here, from Zero Limits to The Miracle. He's also a singer-songwriter with 15 albums recorded, and he's been in 17 movies. Joe is known as a spiritual teacher, hypnotic writer, and creator of Miracles Coaching. When you looked at The Greatest Secret, read it, what was the first things that jumped out to you about it?
I remember my very first thought, and I thought, good for Rhonda, she caught up.
Okay.
That was my first thought.
Okay.
And I mean it in a high compliment. And I don't mean it judgmental or insulting. I meant it like, wow, she's arrived and she's sharing it in a mass way so that her followers, which are gigantic, it's at this point, can all catch up as well. So yes. I was delighted to see it.
Yeah, no, me too. Well, I it's a funny story. My wife and I were on a hike, and it was early in the pandemic, like March or something. And we said, we really need to get this type of thing, like what's in Rhonda's book and our teaching in general, because Rhonda's book really tracks very closely to what we teach all the time. And probably you do too. Mm-hmm. I said, it'd be nice to get this out to a broader audience. And then we both just let go. Whatever happens, happens. We kind of turned it over. And a couple of weeks later, I heard from Rhonda and Lester, who you know his teachings too, and I ended up being a big part, and the Sedona method ended up being a big part of Rhonda's book. So how does Rhonda, what's talked about in The Greatest Secret, in your estimation, how would you explain to people who are really into the first teachings, The Secret, how the two complement each other? How would you explain that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it's a bit of a struggle to answer because the people that are caught up with the first secret, which is about manifestation and the law of attraction, are all about getting. They're about getting, they're about receiving, they're about manifesting. And there's not a thing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. I still teach it, still believe it. It's far better than being a victim in the world.
Oh, totally.
Right. And so it's a very empowering stage to be. But the greatest secret goes beyond it. This is almost like talking about the fundamental essence of the universe and all that is possible within it, as compared to what the limited thinking ego is going to focus on to attract.
Right.
So the secret is priceless. The secret is priceless. Again, it's empowering people. And there's nothing like feeling like you can have, do, or be anything. There's nothing like that feeling. You're Superman, you're Superwoman. But the greatest secret is taking you to a dimension that is hard for the people that are still stuck on the secret to comprehend. And yet, this is the place we all need to go. This is the background of all of it. The secret is almost like a theatrical show, and the greatest secret is the stage that it's appearing on.
Oh, I like that analogy. Yes, it's definitely like the stage.
I struggle to find a way to teach this because it's almost like going to another planet and they say, tell us what a rose is like. We've never seen a rose.
Right,
And I'm
right.
like, I need to bring you one because to actually explain it to somebody that may not understand it
Yes,
is a stretch.
yes, that is a trust. But I thought Rhonda went a long way in that direction. You know, a lot of the way she explained awareness and uh, that which is at the heart of every experience, I thought was written in a very simple and direct and clear way. And it was very nice to have it amplified by all the other people in her book in a similar way to how she had a message she wanted to put out in The Secret, and we all filled in all the blanks from
Right.
how we were teaching it. So
Right.
it's nice she carried that forward.
She did an outstanding job of doing it. The book is masterful because she is not just saying, this is what I think, or this is what I feel, or this is what I've seen or experienced, but she's bringing in all of these authorities, these experts, some living, some dead, and the weight of that adds color to it. And it's another way of explaining something that some people may not get with the first hearing of it. It's a
Right.
little bit like me going to the other planet again and trying to explain a rose when I don't have one on me. But if I can use other people that the other planet could identify with and
Yes.
use their quotes, they might get a sense of the rose.
Right, right, right.
And I think that's what's going on with the book. It's like you read it and you get a sense of this other dimension, which is far more important than the theatrical dimension that we're all on.
Right.
We're on the 3D playing field. And in many ways, what she's talking about is the 4D playing field.
Right, right, right.
We're in the 3D concrete reality. Everything has dimension to it. But what is giving all of this life? What is giving all of this depth and color and the illusion that it's real? And
Right.
that's the greatest secret.
That's right. That's right. So again, since you're exploring this, you're right on the cutting edge with this. So how would you explain it to people? You don't have, again, you don't have to quote anything in The Greatest Secret. How, when you talk to people, how do you tell them about this planet? How do you take them into this experience so that they
Right.
can really feel it and see it and taste it and touch it as best they can for themselves, even though it's beyond the senses?
There's two things that I do. One is I explain the map of consciousness as I understand it.
Yes.
And I basically say there's four levels. The very first one is victimhood. And it's not really a stage of awakening. We're kind of born into it, and virtually all of us are beginning that way. And unless something shifts, we probably go to our death that way. Now, everybody watching this or listening to this right now is way beyond that. So they're not stuck in victimhood. The second stage is empowerment. And empowerment happens when you get to see something like the movie The Secret. And suddenly you awaken going, oh, I don't have to be a victim. I don't have to react to everything. I can actually start creating my life. And that's a thrilling place to be. And then I go on to say, yeah, but that's the second stage. There's two more. And then I say the third stage is what I call surrender. And surrender is when you butt up against something like my father died a couple of years ago. I've been through a divorce that's pretty nasty for 2 years. I met another person who developed a disease to put her on her deathbed, and I was taking care of her during that time. And you butt up against something that says, yeah, you are empowered, but you're not in charge.
Right.
It's the Bill Murray quote that's in the famous movie Groundhog Day, where he says, I'm God. He says, I'm not the God, I'm a God.
Right, 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 right.
And in the surrender stage, you realize I don't have all the power. Something else does, which I've these days call the great something. And what I want to do is align with the great something. Now, all three of these levels is still Joe Vitale, the individual, participating in them.
Yes,
The
yes.
fourth level is what I call the awakening. And the awakening could be called enlightenment. It could be called a wide variety of things, but that's more or less when the individual id, the ego, pops, and what's left is divinity living and breathing through you. And that is That's the prize.
Right. Everything pales compared to that.
Right.
Totally pales. Right.
Yeah, everything else is just like, it was entertainment,
Yes,
it
yes.
was distraction. It was the things that we did to get to this point. And so I explained, I say there's two ways that I do this. One is by explaining these levels of consciousness. And what we would like to experience is awakening, permanent
Yes.
awakening, not even a satori, which is a glimpse of awakening, but an awakening.
Yes.
And the second way that I do this, and I walk people through a meditation, and I'll just describe what it is so we don't have to do the whole thing
How
right
long is
now.
the meditation?
I can do it in a couple of minutes.
So let's take people through the experience. Let's not tease them. You can describe it first.
Okay.
Please describe it first. But again, I've been encouraging everyone I'm talking to, both from The Secret and The Greatest Secret and other thought leaders that I think can contribute to this conversation, to give people real tastes of how they see it, how they teach it, things they can use immediately. And
I
if you
love
have
that.
something you can do in a short amount of time that you think will give people a taste of it, please.
We can do it in 2 minutes or so.
Great.
Uh, Basically, what I do is walk people up to the door of awakening.
Right.
I'm kind of grinning a little bit inside myself, thinking, oh, this is so good. And this is so easy.
Right.
And so, what I begin by saying, notice your thoughts,
Yes.
which is a form of meditation. You can just notice your thoughts, but I'm inviting the people watching or listening right now to notice that they're thinking. And they might be thinking, I like Joe or I don't like Joe. I like Hale, I don't like Hale. They could be thinking, where is he going with this? They could be thinking about what they're doing later, what they did earlier, all kind of thoughts. So, nature of the human experience, thoughts are bubbling up. I just say, notice the thoughts. And then as you notice the thoughts, notice you're having thoughts. You're not thoughts. If you're having thoughts and you're not the thoughts, then you're somehow separate from those thoughts. You're somehow not them. And I invite people to wonder, well, who is watching the thoughts if I'm not the thoughts? And then we move into the body. And I'll say, notice you're in your physical body. Maybe it feels good. Maybe you've got a slight headache or your little muscle twitch and you got to adjust your body, your positioning.
Mhm.
But notice you can witness your body. You're not your body. You can report on your body, which means some aspect of you is not your physical being. And then I move into emotions and I'll say, how are you feeling right now? And I'm inviting people to notice, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you confused? Are you grieving? Are you, what's going on at this point? And then I'm just like all the others, I say, notice that you can report on the emotions. You can describe the emotions, that you are somehow not the emotions. And then comes the wonderful question, if you're not your thoughts and you're not your body and you're not your emotions, who are you? And then I go on to say that the part of you that is witnessing those thoughts, those emotions in your physical body, that part, that in some cultures they call the witness, that witness is the awakening. The more we can align with that background awareness, the more we can move to joining it, dissolving into it, and becoming it. My view is that you don't make awakening happen. It comes by grace. Wanting to know a technique to make an awakening or some tool or hack is the ego trying to outsmart the ego. And by going through this little tiny meditation, which is really just an awareness meditation, and realizing I'm not my thoughts, I've got all these thoughts going on, but I can witness them, I can describe them, I can write them down, I can share them. And I'm not my physical body. I can take pictures of it and I can describe it to you and give you the pros and cons and tell you how I'm feeling. And I am not my body. And it's the same with my emotions. I might be happy, I might be sad, but there's something inside of me that is neutral. That neutral witness is our door to awakening. Ta-da.
Very well put. Very well put. What I've found is that as each time you bring people to the door, they peek in a little more. And
Agreed. Yes.
that which is peaking dissolves a little more. And so, as you know, because you're very familiar with what we do, that part of what we do, we work a lot at the stage of surrender, because most people still have places they're stuck, even though they're doing it as a person surrendering. It's still very useful to people. And then the other work that we do is we keep, and because I agree with you that it is grace, that awareness that we are is in charge, and it decides when it no longer needs to pretend to be a body mind. The body mind doesn't stop pretending. The body mind is the pretense.
Exactly. Yeah, I
So,
love that. I love that. I think there's different ways that we can get closer to that awakening and that awareness. But the awakening, the door opening itself, comes from the great something, comes from the divine, comes
yes,
from the witness, comes from the great mystery.
yes,
You
yes,
don't make it happen. You can walk up and knock on the door,
yes,
but whether it opens or not, it's not up to you. In fact, we can
yes.
look at the enlightened masters throughout history, and they've come from all walks of life, and some of them look like they didn't deserve it.
Many.
That's the mad people, the madmen, mad women of enlightenment. And it has nothing to do with deservingness.
Oh yeah, nothing.
Nothing at all. That's our judgment. That's us thinking, well, that shouldn't have been right. They should have prayed more or meditated more. But in my view, in my experience, all the tools that are available can help us quiet enough and become aware enough that we can move to a possible merging, to that awakening.
Right, right, right.
And I am a huge fan of the Sedona method and Lester and the gang. It's so amazing that you and I have had that path for the longest time. And
Yeah,
that's,
very parallel.
yes, and one of many tools that is incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, you've shared several tools that I think are very powerful, including besides the Sedona method. So,
One of the
yeah.
that sounded like an opening for me. So I'm
Yes, it
gonna,
is. You interpreted it correctly.
yes, I'm doing my best to be on the same wavelength here. And Ho'oponopono is one of the methods that I've brought to the masses. I was lucky enough to be the author to write a book that has made a difference in getting that message out there. And Ho'oponopono is one of the tools that I use on a regular basis, just like Sedona. I still use that. And Ho'oponopono, for those who don't know, is a Hawaiian healing method that I first discovered, or at least heard about, because a therapist used it to help heal an entire ward of mentally ill criminals, not by working on them, but by working on himself. In Ho'oponopono, you view as everything on the outside of you is basically an illusion. And if you want to change anything, you don't change the illusion because it's only a mirror. It's like trying to put makeup on your face by putting it on the mirror. It doesn't take effect. You got to
No,
put it on
you just have a
yourself.
dirty mirror.
You have a very dirty, yes, isn't that relevant? You have a dirty
Yeah.
mirror. And I learned that the method was very simple. And again, I'll just share what it is.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, it's 4 phrases, very simple phrases that you say within yourself to your connection to what I keep calling the great something. Somebody could call it God, you can call it nature, you can call it Gaia. There's 1,000 different names for this energy field. I call it the great something. The 4 phrases are a kind of a prayer. And so you're feeling whatever is going on in your life, which could be a frustration, could be a problem, could be nothing at all. You just want to have enlightenment. You want to awaken. And the 4 phrases you say inside yourself as if you're having a dialogue with the great something. And you're basically saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. Very simple. People say them in any order. They don't need to feel them when they say it, though I do feel you have more power and more impact when you actually feel the statements as you say them. And again, you don't say them to another person, you're saying them internally. And what seems to happen in the most magical and mysterious way is that these phrases erase some of the blocks, which in Ho'oponopono they call data. It erases some of the data, some of the blocks, some of the beliefs that are between you and awakening.
Hmm.
So the 4 phrases are designed to help bring you to what Rhonda talks about in the book, The Greatest Secret. It's bringing you there by removing what is keeping you from there.
Right, right, right.
And so I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. The shorthand explanation, you're basically saying, please forgive me for being unaware of my beliefs. I'm sorry for being unconscious. Thank you for taking care of the problem, removing the data, removing my blinders. And I love you for this process. I love you for this life. I love you for fill in the blank, whatever it is. And those 4 phrases have done miracles for people.
Yes.
I've written 3 books on it. There's lots of information on YouTube and everywhere else, so people can find out about it.
Yes, yes. And you know what you added today, which I haven't heard before. I've heard you describe this today. And I love this technique. It is something that's very complementary to what we do.
Right.
But what you added, or maybe I just heard it for the first time, is that you're actually addressing that truth or that beingness or that isness or that true self that you are. And I somehow missed that before. I thought you were kind of addressing the person, or you're addressing either person, the person in here, or the person that you were focusing on in order to do this, like the therapist did. But as an addressing of that which you truly are,
Yes.
it is definitely a way of surrender of the identification to that which is already free of identification. So
exactly correct. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, because one of the common mistakes when people hear about Ho'oponopono is they think they need to say it to what they think is the problem, which is often their spouse, their employer, the neighbor. They focus on something. And in Ho'oponopono, those things don't actually exist.
Right, they don't matter at all.
They're projections from inside of you that are living out your own limiting beliefs and your own issues. So in a way, they're a gift, but you don't go to them and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. In fact, you mentioned the therapist. Dr. Hulen was his name. When he was at the Hawaii State Hospital for the criminally insane, he didn't focus on any of those patients. He would look at their charts. I was looking for a chart to hold up, but he would look at their charts and he would notice how he felt inside himself. And sometimes these were violent criminals. And so sometimes he was repulsed. Sometimes he was angry. Sometimes he was in shame. What he focused on removing were those feelings. He wasn't trying to directly influence or change the patients. Therapists have been trying that for decades.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, those patients were shackled and sedated on a regular basis because nobody could handle them. And so what Dr. Hudlen was doing with Ho'oponopono was going inside himself and noticing that I'm not at peace here. I'm not at the great something or the great secret. I am disturbed, and here's what I'm disturbed about. And in not saying it's the other person, you're saying that the other person, the mirage, triggered you, but the trigger's in you.
Yes.
Trigger's in you. And so Ho'oponopono is about dissolving the trigger. Because when we dissolve the trigger, which is in me, then I get closer to the awakening. I get closer to enlightenment. I get closer to the great secret. And also magically, mysteriously, I don't know how to explain this at this point, they change anyway.
Yes.
Those mentally ill criminals started to get better. They started to be released. After 4 years, that particular ward was closed. But he didn't focus on healing them. He focused on healing him.
Right. I know that's very radical. And again, that is why it's so powerful, is because it's focusing on the source.
Yes.
As opposed to the reflection. It's like staring at a mirror and making an angry face at it and expecting the mirror to change your face, change the reflection in the mirror. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It just magnifies.
Yeah, the cycle continues. What's interesting is that somehow we have to keep hearing this until at some point it takes hold.
Yes.
Or until at some point we let go, depending on how you want to look at this.
Or both.
And both at the same time.
Yeah.
And this is why I so love what you're doing. And I so love that Rhonda came out with her book, is that for some people, when they read her book for the very first time, it might be confusing to them. Yes. They might go, this doesn't make sense. And there's passages in there like when you identify with the witness, you don't suffer in the way that you would have when you were identified with yourself. And when somebody first hears that, especially if they're suffering right now, they're got to go, "Ooh, that's BS."
Right. What is he? Yeah. That can be a reaction for sure.
And that's why we need to hear this over and over again. And I'm more or less speaking of myself. One reason there's a wall of books behind me is that I'm constantly reminding myself and stretching and doing my best to find and delete the limitations. And using every tool available, whether it's Sedona or Ho'oponopono, to help me get to that end.
Yes.
So I'm on the journey.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. It's what I find is that as we can see more and more that we're not any of the things that we thought we were to begin with, we are that which allows them to appear. That dissolves any sense of personal limitation. It gets harder and harder. At first, when people first come to this, I know it was that way for me, and I'm sure people listening to this will feel the same way. Sometimes it seems hard to dissolve these habit patterns or these limitations. But the more you let go and the more you recognize that you are that which is aware, you're not what those limitations are saying you are, the easier it gets. There's a momentum or a natural support that actually, again, it relates to what you said about grace. It feels like that awareness that you are, the more you focus on it, the more you honor it, the more you love it, the more you make yourself available to it, the more it actually dissolves you into itself.
I totally agree. I actually think that's the meditation that we could do on a daily basis. Even if somebody took what I was doing a little earlier with a short meditation, and I said, you're not your thoughts, you're the witness, you're not your body, you're the witness, you're not your emotion, you're a witness. All of that is to get people to look behind the illusion, to look behind what we've been identifying with. And I think the more we spend time sitting and doing our best to identify with that background witness, the closer we become the background witness.
Right.
And I think that's the meditation. When we sit and try to do that, we are going to be caught up with the thoughts. We're going to be caught up with, distractions, feelings, all kind of other things, stories that we've told about ourselves. But to me, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. This is a door to awakening.
Right.
And things like Rhonda's book point to it. They point to it. Right. And I guess I'm challenging and encouraging people to do what I'm doing on a daily basis. If somebody has something better, please do it. Please share it with me. But what I'm doing right now is doing my best to identify with that background witness and merge with it.
Yes.
Knowing that it will open the door for me, but I will be at the door for when it opens.
Right. And what also happens, the more you do this, you start experiencing longer and longer periods where there isn't a you waiting at the door. There's a you looking through the door from the other side and lovingly noticing that there's still things working out, but you are that which has been aware to the whole drama, the whole search, all of it.
Mhm.
And you are already that wholeness, that completeness,
Mhm.
that beauty that's shining in plain sight.
I love that. Well said. You know what we're doing here, and this is coming to me as we're talking, so I may not express it well, but forgive me and hang in there for one moment. I feel like what we're doing is blowing the whistle on the game. We're
Yeah,
blowing the
that
whistle
is,
on the game. We came in to the planetary experience with an agreement to be unconscious. And that agreement to be unconscious was only for our delight. This is for us to entertain ourselves, to be educated through the experiences we go through, only to get to the end, the finish line, the goalpost, whatever you want to call it, to use some sort of sports analogy here. And at that point, we awakened and realized, oh, this was a Broadway show
right,
on
right.
planet Earth, and we
Yes,
set it up for our own dazzlement
yes, yes,
and then an awakening. And
yes,
we can
yes.
take it one step further and say, I didn't do it. I mean, Joe didn't do this,
No,
but,
no.
but the divine did this through Joe.
Yes, and it's doing it through all manifestation.
It's doing it through all
I
manifestation.
mean,
It is right.
the wonderful thing about this awakening that we're all part of, everyone listening to this, even people who at this moment are completely unconscious to this,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just this one, what do you call it again? The great beyond, or whatever it is,
The great something.
the great something.
Yes.
The words I usually use is just uh, pure awareness, or
Mm-hmm.
effortless, choiceless awareness. And
Mm-hmm.
that effortless, choiceless awareness, it's actually what's causing the whole unfoldment. It's not a Hale awakening or Joe
Right.
awakening or
Right.
whoever your name is.
Mm-hmm.
It's awakening through to
Yeah.
itself through all manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is
Mm-hmm.
participating in that awakening, and it's in no way personal to Hale or Joe or anyone else. And that's why it's also an act of grace, because we're fortunate, and everyone listening to us is fortunate, because we're consciously interested in participating. So
Yes.
we get to enjoy the game a lot more. A lot of us
Mm-hmm.
are still being dragged behind the bus, kicking and screaming, or we're in the bus steering, and we forget that the wheel is the bus that we're steering. That
Yeah.
the wheel actually isn't connected, so we're going like this, and the
Trying to
world
go
isn't
left and
always.
right. Right.
But in my experience, it's a completely impersonal unfoldment
Mm.
that feels personal to each individual, but it isn't. It's all grace.
For some reason, I have the image of being on a small theater stage. And as I'm on this small theater stage, I've been playing the role of an author, sometimes singer-songwriter, musician, sometimes a guy who appears in movies, sometimes a guy who appears on stage. And somebody walks up to me, I guess it's the director,
Right.
and says, "You're just acting. This isn't really you.
Right. Right.
This is the role you're playing
Yes.
for
Yes.
us right now."
Yes. Yes.
And I had this awakening, and there's a little pop, and I go, "Oh, I'm acting." Well, if I'm acting, I am far less disturbed by anything that goes on the stage,
Exactly.
because now I go, well, it's just part of the play.
Yes.
it's
Exactly.
it's part of the theatrical experience. I think what you're doing with these interviews and what Rhonda did with her book and how we're describing this right now is of the greatest service to everybody that's listening and watching, because it's that reminder of the power center that's behind it all. It's the reminder of the awakening. It's a reminder of, if there's a prize to win here, it's the prize of awareness,
Yes.
the prize of awareness.
Yes. Yes. It's a very worthwhile prize. By the way, you keep mentioning stage, so I have to say this because it keeps coming.
Okay.
When I do these interviews or when I teach, there's rarely a thought before speaking happens. Speaking is just happening. But this has come twice, so I want to bring this up because I want to
Okay.
give credit where credit is due. Shakespeare had it absolutely correctly. All the
The
world's
world's
a
a
stage,
stage.
and all the men and women are actors.
Actors.
And uh, Shakespeare was actually a lot more aware than people give him credit for. And his plays, a lot of it is hidden in the play.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's how our lives are too.
Mm.
If you look around at your
Mm.
life, you'll see places where that awareness that you are has been going, hey, look over here. This is an obvious invitation for you to discover that which you truly are.
Mm.
And they're always there. There's always an invitation in every moment. And it's not a harsh thing. We think it's harsh because sometimes the invitation does come in the form of a challenge,
Mm.
but it's nothing like that. It's almost like a loving mother
Mm.
continuously inviting you to learn to walk on your own, to
Mm.
to to learn that to to just embrace that which you truly are. And mother, father doesn't matter, but the important thing is we have so much support all the time, and most of the time we just ignore it. We don't realize how much support we have at every moment, and it's just beautiful to see that all unfold. You mentioned these discussions. It's been so enriching to me to do this because a lot of the teachers in The Secret I hadn't talked to in at least a decade.
Right.
And I've been reminded how much I love them all. They're all just my friends. And we're all, as we all join in this conversation that Rhonda brought back to the forefront, it's been something we've all been exploring, but it's so nice to see all the connections, all the places where we're all in total harmony. We're totally doing the same thing from our own unique perspective. And it's very valuable that we're all have our unique expression because everyone
Mm.
hears through their filters,
Yeah.
through their way of perceiving, and some way that, like the meditation you did, or the process. I'd say it again. I always
Ho'oponopono. I just pronounce every.
Ho'oponopono.
That's it. I pronounce every syllable.
For some reason, I can't always pronounce it, but both of those are just examples of ways that we can explore this truth of who or what we are.
Mm.
And I invite everyone to work with the ones that you resonate with the most. There aren't good ones and bad ones. They're all helpful. If you resonate with them, if you're feeling supported by them, and if you're feeling more aligned with or resting as that awareness that you are, then you're going in the right direction. Would you
Totally
agree with
agree.
that?
Oh, totally agree. I feel like I should bow out and just let you.
No, I'm not trying to take over here.
Oh, no, not at all. I just love what you're
One of the
saying.
things that's happened as we've done these interviews is, at first I was trying to not break the wall between the interviewer and the interviewee.
Mm.
I've tried, and it was actually hard for me because I'm generally the one people ask me questions. So here I'm
Mm-hmm.
asking questions. But then
Mm-hmm.
I realized, just have a conversation because that's more natural.
Right.
And I invite everyone, don't just listen to all of us. You have conversations with your friends and relatives who are open
Mm.
to this too. Share this conversation. It's not even about sharing Rhonda's book, or any of our individual work, but if we could engage in the conversation around discovering the truth of who we are, as opposed to, God, this really is terrible, or this is awful, or I want to tell you about my problem that I believe is real and true today. If we engaged around this instead, it'd be a very different world.
I totally agree. You know, when I was describing the Ho'oponopono basic method and the 4 phrases, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I I just feel I want to point out that all you really need to do is take one of those phrases. If you take either thank you or I love you and made that the new mantra going on in your head, that your life experience would change right there.
Yes.
Especially if the thinking, which is distracting us from the great secret and from the awakening, our thinking is just the monkey mind rattling off and is going to do all kind of things and manipulate us in all kind of ways. If we can replace it, if not with all 4 phrases, I love you or thank you, I think we would just transform right there.
Yes, I happen to agree with you. When one of the assignments I give, when and you know, I, when I work with people, I say or do things with the individual or the group, and I give them things like
I call it the ho-ho method.
Ho-ho
The
method,
ho-ho
like the
method.
ho-ho method. But one of the things I often say is, if you just inwardly thank whatever you're experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
everything drops away. And if you can cultivate the feeling of love, not to both the person, the one that you often identify with and as, everything that appears in the body-mind world, and that which is aware of it, the love acts as a bridge, because the awareness that we are is actually very affectionate. It's very affectionate. It's wishing, even though it has no thinking. I'm using words and it's a pointer. It's not the absolute truth, but there is this sense that awareness, the awareness that we are, is affectionately aware of everything that's happening. And if you tune into that affectionate part, it helps you open your heart more to the direct experience of that which you truly are.
I love that. I'm also reminded that I got to spend quite a bit of time with Dr. Hulen, who was the therapist at the hospital practicing Ho'oponopono, and he's the one who taught it to me. And he came back from a walk one time. He loves to walk. And he was walking. It was kind of a walking meditation. And he had tears in his eyes. And he says, the divine just wants us to know that we are loved. The divine just wants us to know that we are loved. And I'm thinking of this partly because when you said there's a certain affection quality, and again, we're using words to point in the direction.
Right.
And it's like me trying to describe the rose to the aliens again. Right. It's a challenge, but it's the idea that that background essence, that is alive. And if there's any word that we humans might use to describe it, I would say love.
Yes.
I might add unconditional love, but I would say love. So that sense of affection, that sense of love, is another reason for us to practice this meditation of going beyond the thoughts, going beyond the body, going beyond the emotions, or behind all of it, depending on how you look at it, so that we could feel that love.
Yes, yes. And embody it. The wonderful thing is that in my experience, and I know it's your living experience too, is that love is actually who or what we are. It's not something we need to get from anyone else. It's not something actually anyone can give us. We are its source.
Yeah. I'm nodding my head, and the people that are listening on audio are going,
right.
We don't know what he's doing. He's silent. I'm silent because I'm nodding my head.
Right. But everyone listening, if you can allow yourself to just be open to that, at least as a possibility, that the love that you're looking for outside of yourself is already right within you, just that in and of itself will transform you.
Nice.
So Is there anything else you want to share with people that you think that would add to this conversation we've been having? I've been enjoying it a lot. It's been very rich. And I really appreciate the fact that you gave two very clear things that people can explore to start to, it's all these words that all of us teachers use, they're only helpful when they become experiential. So do you have any other invitations to experience that you want to share?
Well, besides the ones we talked about from both of us, I would say I'm a big fan of what I call a gratitude meditation. And in fact, I'm in Texas and haven't been traveling because of the pandemic. And so virtually every night I'm in the hot tub. And every night when I'm in the hot tub, I'm conversing with the great something. And when I'm conversing with the great something, I'm saying thank you. And I will go through my day and I will say thank you for whatever took place. And it could just be that I woke up and I felt good, or the sun was out, or it rained, or it didn't rain, or, thank you for the interview that you and I just did. And that experience of gratitude is another meditation. It's another technique, but it's another way to get to the door of awakening. I have found that the more that I really genuinely get into the spirit of gratitude, I change. My physiology changes, my mindset changes. Any stresses that I might have carried through the day between the hot tub and this technique, they get melted.
Right. Good combination.
Right. Hot tub and meditation. And what I end up is kind of sitting at the door of awakening.
Yes, yes.
And because that's the door that's full of love and, as you say, affection, and I will add gratitude, it puts me that much closer,
right,
to actually merging with it.
Yes.
So that said, I would invite people to experience gratitude every day, or as much as possible throughout the day. What are you thankful for? What are you grateful for? And I tell a famous story. It's been in several movies now, but it's about when I was homeless, in poverty, struggling, but I was reading all the books, trying to do all the techniques. I would go to the library and they kept talking about gratitude. And I thought, yeah, I'll be grateful when I have something to be grateful for God's sake. And then I picked up a pencil. This is a pen, but I picked up a pencil and I said, okay, I'll be grateful for this. I wasn't grateful. And I was playing along. I was skeptical and I was belligerent and I was angry. And I said, all right, with this pencil, I can write a suicide note, and I can write a grocery list, and I can write, a to-do list, and I can write the great American novel. Oh, wait a minute. I started to shift. I can write songs. Oh, wait. I can write affirmations. Whoa, this is getting exciting. I can write, a love letter. I can write romance novels. I can write, next thing I know, I get chills every time I tell this story. And then I turned the pencil over, and of course there's an eraser, and I went, oh my God, this is genius. There's an eraser. I can erase the suicide note. I can correct my misspellings in my manifesto. And I went from belligerent, ungrateful, having nothing to be grateful for, to feeling transformed. And it was with a pencil. And so my whole point is, you don't actually need anything to start feeling grateful. You can fake it at first and you will move into gratitude. And you do that on a regular basis. And man, then you start living in a hot tub at night and having things that you can list that you're grateful for.
Well said. The other thing is too, is when you can find at least some gratitude to the gift of things that you still consider challenges, they stop being challenges. They seem to transform. It's, to me, how it appears that inwardly they transform, because instead of fighting with them or rejecting them or saying no to them, you're having that attitude of grateful. Yes, okay, I don't like the way the lesson is coming, but I see that there's something I need to recognize here, or open to here, or discover here. So adding gratitude for that, and that's exactly what you're talking about with the pencil. And it's like that, because when you even if you're faking it at first, it,
Mm-hmm.
the the that energy is so transformative because it's coming from source. Gratitude is another word for love. It's interesting.
Mm.
The the ho method uh, is
Right.
is 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 all four questions are really about love and forgiveness,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
no matter how you phrase them, and
Mm-hmm.
have that being your focus is beautiful.
Absolutely true.
Mhm. So I think we've covered a lot, and it's been fun.
This is,
Any summary thought you want to leave people with before we wrap it up?
I would say, trust your inner guidance. It's a learning experience. I remember when I was hearing, trust yourself, trust your guidance, trust your intuition. And I'd go, yeah, but I'm confused. I don't know which is my guidance and which is my intuition, which is the devil, which is the intellect. I don't know. I would say it takes practice and it takes discernment. But the more we can be quiet and tune in to the still small voice within, I think it is going to take us to the door of awakening.
Yes.
It'll take us, like people are listening to this hour-long or so conversation, and out of it, there'll be a couple gems that they'll go, oh, I really want to try the Ho method, or I really want to do Sedona, or I really want to read Rhonda's book. Whatever it is for them, trust their inner guidance.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Joe Vitale. You can learn more about Joe, his books, courses, and mentoring program by visiting vitalelifemastery.com. That's www.vitale, spelled Vitale, lifemastery.com. vitalelifemastery.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you have immediate access to future episodes. Please give us a 5-star rating and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about my work, my mentor Lester Levinson's work, and the Sedona method, please visit www.sedona.com. As you explore our site, you'll learn the key to lasting happiness, success, peace, and emotional well-being. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, go to sedona.com. That's Sedona.com. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.